Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Russian Subway Dogs. This is probably going to be the last digital game released on Vita. There is another game called Wish Something, but it's by Sometimes You. It's apparently not very good and apparently it runs terribly. To which I say, it's by Sometimes You, that's not a surprise. With that said, let's go and have a little bit of a look around before we hop into the game. You got sound options. Not many, but okay. Controls, which you can rebind to whatever you want, which is mainly the shoulder buttons or the face buttons, but that's fine, that's all you really need. And your difficulty. It determines how many side objectives you need to do in order to get through the game. I'd recommend putting it on Tourist, because a few of these levels can be really gimmicky to the point of being downright frustrating. So I would recommend just having that on so you don't have to do as many of those in order to actually get through the campaign. They aren't kidding when they say that it is a bit of a shorter game as a result. I had all of these done before I turned the difficulty to Tourist mode, and I went from having these two levels unlocked to being able to go all the way to World 3, which is certainly something. But frankly, I still think it's the better way to go about things. So you've got a bunch of campaign levels here. They go linearly, and as you can see, you need to get a certain amount in order to move on to the next level. And by a certain amount, I mean a certain amount of bones, which you get by 1 for finishing a level, and 3 for doing the side objectives. There is also story cutscenes, quote unquote. But yeah, they're not really story. It's just comedy, more or less. That's pretty much all there is to it. We'll do this Elk is on Fire, because why not? There are also extra characters that you can unlock from both games and memes. I haven't got all of them, as you can see. You get them as you go through the campaign. But they go so far as to have them all be relatively unique, and they even have like little quotes, which is a nice touch. So for example, if we go with Question Hound, fine. So the basic concept of the game is actually really simple. If you stand behind someone and bark, they'll drop whatever it is they're holding. If it's food, you want that food to be picked up while you're in the air, while it's in the air. Potentially while you're also in the air. And if you do this successfully, you'll get bonus points, but if you don't, you'll just get a regular amount of points. The more combos you can pull by getting food while it's in the air means that you get more points off it. But there are also enemies who are carrying around, and I'm not kidding here, explosives. Because vodka is incredibly dangerous in this universe. And if you manage to hit someone with an explosive and they're carrying food, that food will be worth more to you. So the game itself ends up being it's simple, but it ends up being chaotic. Because you need to find the best ways to combo these items. Like, look, for example. I just comboed the heck out of that fish, which gave me a hell of a lot of points. So let me try that again. You need to find ways to do effective combos of explosives and then use those explosives to hit people who are carrying food so that they can cook the food and you get more points for it. Then once your time runs out, and if you've hit the score, hop on the train and you can go. And I didn't finish any of the bloody side objectives there, because some of them can be really hard. 2 elk with a single vodka explosion. Get a fire elk to charge through a babushka. Getting 4 elk to charge into floor hot sauce fires. Jesus, man. Unfortunately, you do need to do them in order to proceed through the levels. And it can be really frustrating. Like, for example, let me demonstrate with this one here. Elk roast with braised veggies. Eat a vegetarian diet, so don't let the elk eat anything. Not allowing any Dobermans to eat elk meat. Easy enough. And then getting a roasted veggie bonus at least twice. So these guys here are veggie carriers. Bark at them, and they'll drop 3 things. 3 vegetables. And an explosive vodka bottle. So you need to bark at these guys to get them to drop their explosive vodka bottles so that you can use it to hit these other guys in order to get their food to cook. And then not only do you need to continue on with that, but you also need to prevent those from hitting the elks there. Because if it hits the elks, they'll turn into meat. And if they turn into meat, the Dobermans will be able to run over and grab them. The levels are the same every time, but on a level like this, when the order that the explosive vodka bottle and the vegetables that come out can be completely different on each playthrough, it's immensely frustrating. Not to mention, you still have to try and do this while getting a decent score, good luck, and keeping yourself alive, also good luck. Because if you bark too much, it'll cost you too much stamina. And it just becomes absolute chaos. I don't see any way I could reasonably get this level done without relying on luck. At least in relation to the bone objectives. And a lot of the game ends up feeling like this. Just because of the way things can go out of your control incredibly fast. Not to mention, you would have to go and play these levels multiple times in order to get some of the side objectives working. And it can be really frustrating as a result. Bloody poodles. Hang on, we'll swap to the lovers in a dangerous space-time cat. Because why not, I suppose, right? Meow. Don't ever let me do that again. Poodles are annoying, because they'll jump for this shit. And poodles can actually take away points if you end up letting them eat stuff. And while, again, they may not spawn randomly, but damn if it doesn't feel random like what they end up doing. And then you can get something like that. You'll get a really good combo going. And then it'll all just go away because you can't get these fucking poodles out of the way. And I don't want to say it's a problem with the controls, but it's a problem with the controls too. Not entirely with the controls, but there's just something really fucking weird about them that I haven't been able to figure out. They just don't work right. Well, I mean, they work perfectly, but it's sitting on this weird in-between where it's like, I'm just trying to figure out the way to explain it, where you know what you have to do, you know the inputs to do it, but sometimes it just feels like it's out of your control because of the way that the character moves. hang on, let's just go and play some endless mode instead. So we got some different backgrounds going on, but I don't think it makes a difference, so we'll just go with random and random. Also, no online leaderboards, but I can't say I'm surprised. It's just because of, like, the way that the acceleration works. Because you just tap it, and you barely move. But after about a quarter of a second, you just go flying. And as a result, it can end up being annoyingly precise. So your hunger level starts out low, but it gets higher as you go. Because it's the endless survival mode, that's just kind of how it works. Oh yeah, the fish ladies can and will hit you with those fish. See, I feel like that poodle just turned around on purpose, like it knew what was coming. And you can't eat the fish unless it's cooked. As a result of all of these things, like the way the controls work... Feed an elk coffee? Oh, I must have missed the thing. Just because of the way that the controls work, I just walked right into that one, I know. The way the controls work, how random the game can get, and how... And just how sometimes this really annoying shit here can happen, where they'll just gang up on the one piece of food that you can get, and you'll end up near death, or the way they've outlaid some of the levels so that it feels like it relies too much on certain gimmicks in order to make a challenge. I just find the game to be really frustrating. Just, yeah, not really that big of a fan. It doesn't feel specific. It doesn't feel like it's got the precision I would normally look for in an arcade game like this. I'm not going to say it's an outright terrible game. See, look, I've got no chance here. Like, even if I was able to bark that out of his thing, out of his hand, I wasn't going to be able to catch it. Apparently I can't even put in my own name. Ain't that just shit? And it's almost a shame because the game itself actually runs alright. Like, for a PlayStation Vita game released in 2021, that's not a given. I haven't noticed anything in the way of frame rate drops. And again, you'd think, like, it's a really simple two-dimensional game. You wouldn't think that'd be a problem, but... Well, there are certainly a bunch of Vita games that have had that problem. That look even simpler than this. So, yeah. And I will at least give it credit for its theme. Although this almost feels like the people over the, I'm pretty damn sure the people who made Aqua Kitty didn't make this. But it sure feels like they did. Just the sense of humor it has going on. Certainly feels like Aqua Kitty. And it's a creative mechanic. But again, it just feels weird. Like, so, the way the controls work is just odd, and with how much acceleration there is, and just the outright randomness with how some of it works, just because of the Great. And the outright randomness of some of it. Just because of the way that some of the AI works. And the fact that they rely on these gimmicks just rubs me the wrong way. So yeah, as a result, I don't really like it. It's not a bad game. I just can't find myself recommending it at the end of the day. Or at least it's not an awful game. I do think it's not a good game, at least in my point of view. But it's not something I would say I don't see what they're going for here. And there is some enjoyment to be had. I'd call it mediocre. I would personally call it mediocre at best. Honestly, it wouldn't be the worst purchase in the world. But it costs $15, and I think that's just a bit too much. At $9.99, I might have been a little bit more okay with it, but $15 just feels like a bit too much for me, personally. For fuck's sake. Screw you, I got rid of 2 Donobins. I just don't see this having any staying power at the end of the day. Which feels weird saying that in the context of the Vita store closing down, but there you go. Basically had to just sit there and wait for that guy to show up to really get anything done. Let that bounce off the wall. I wasn't getting both of those in one drop anyway, so it wasn't going to matter. It is kind of neat when you can work out a big explosion chain to your favor, but there's just too much randomness in order to make that happen consistently. Or make it feel satisfying in the sense that I set that up. Because there is no way you would set that up except waiting for a bunch of the dudes to show up that have vodka bottles. And hoping for the best. Because really, like, what the hell else are you gonna do? Right? In order to try and set up a big explosion chain? God, I really do hate the controls in this game. They just feel so... The acceleration just makes it so hard to be precise sometimes. And it happens at the worst possible times, too. We'll play one more game. And sometimes shit like that happens. Where it's really fucking hard to keep the bottles above ground. And I saw no difference between the bottle we're juggling now and the bottle we were juggling before. But for some reason, one of them just refused to land properly. Not to mention these guys can turn on a dime, so as soon as you go to bark at them, they'll be like, oh, no, I'm facing the other way now. Screw that. Yeah, I've had enough. I do appreciate the little references you get at the end when you die, though. To the relevant crossover. It's kind of neat. So yeah, that was Russian Subway Dogs. Neat idea, decent theme, runs well enough. But it just doesn't play well in context. The campaign relies a bit too much on gimmicky levels in order to make that work. The randomness of the game is a bit of a pain in the ass, and the way it handles with the acceleration makes it really hard to be precise. I just can't find a massive reason to want to keep playing it. And that's pretty much it. This has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.